Welcome to the Imperfect Dads Podcast. This is your host, Devin. We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids, but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like. Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood and how they feel like they're holding it together or how they're not. Thank you for joining us for this episode. On this episode, we have on Chris Miller from the Mechanic's Garage. Chris has a platform where he normalizes talking to men about generational trauma. We talked about being born with a blueprint and trying to understand what you're born into, seeing what changes you can make, therapy, and ultimately what steps you can take to be more present for your family. Chris was really easy to go along with, and it was great to talk to someone who was hoping to normalize men looking inward to become better for their families. And also just like one more thing.
Dad, just start the episode.
Oh, my bad. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Dads Podcast. This episode's guest is Chris Miller with, what's the name of it? Is it, tell me what the company is, your TikTok, all that, because I already forgot the name. I'm so sorry.
No, it's a Mechanic's Garage is the main umbrella of it. It came up with that name just simply because my background came from being a mechanic for 15 years. And it's kind of ironic how some of the correlation is between working on cars and fixing ourselves too. There's a lot of similarities actually, if you really look for them.
Do you consider if you go to therapy, it's just you're going in for a tune-up? It's not, that's the wording for it.
I think so. And I think the cool thing is when we look at it like that, therapy becomes a lot less scary. It's something that's like, this is actually something that benefits and something that I need to keep the car on the road.
Pretty much. I'm going to immediately at the top, just getting us into therapy discussion. I think once I realized that like a lot of us, we have patterns and patterns repeat themselves. And it's really hard to be aware of your patterns because you're in the pattern. And a therapist, you tell them the pattern and they're like, oh, hey, have you ever thought about it from this angle? Because here's what I'm seeing. And you're like, why would I ever expect myself to be able to see the problem, hear the noise? And you hear the noise in the car and you're like, should probably get that checked out. And then a mechanic therapist is like, yeah, thanks for getting it checked out. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's dead on that. I like to think of it as blueprints is what we get handed, and the correlation I like to make is we get handed this blueprint from our parents oftentimes. Yes. I mean, a good majority of it. Sometimes we have stuff mixed in there from coaches, from teachers, from all other aspects, right? But that blueprint looks about like the art that my 4-year-old does right now. I mean, it's not the most detailed thing, right? So we have to figure out how to start creating our own blueprint when it comes to not only just being a dad, but just being a man in general, because there's so much stuff there. It's like, yeah, this piece here is good and this piece works here, but all of this other stuff, like I got to get rid of it. I got to do something else and rebuild it.
Yeah. Or understand it. I feel like that's a good majority of self-acceptance to me is just understand. Because I think a younger version of myself was very eager to be like, this part of me is bad. I despise it. And be like, hey, let's understand it before you try to throw it in the trash, burn it, set it on fire. Like it's actually part of you. And this is a great opportunity to show yourself some love and acceptance and course correct.
Yeah, 100%. If we don't do stuff like that, and as crazy as it sounds to say it in this way, we just simply become a middleman. Yeah. We don't really parent. We let everything that parented us parent our kids. And I mean, obviously, if we're trying to get better ourselves, then something there didn't go 100% correctly. And it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah,
that's kind of the other twist. A lot of the times we'll start working on stuff as dads, as men, just people in general. And we try to get this perfect idea of who we're supposed to be. And we're never going to make a mistake or anything. It's like, no, I know I'm going to make mistakes. And on the other end, I hope that my kids do a whole lot better than I do at this whole parenting thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Correct. And my parents raised us with that mentality of like being willing to say, I'm sorry, being willing to say, hey, I'm trying here. Let's talk about it. And I think that's one thing. Like if I've had some people ask me like, what you've talked to a lot of dads, what do you think is different? That whole discussion of like, oh, I need to say, I'm sorry. I need to let my kids into my mental space to be like, hey, whenever this happened, this didn't go the way I thought it would. Here's my logic for it. Here's where I see that it went wrong. And I'm sorry. Next time, I'm going to try to figure out it in a different way, but just know it wasn't my intention for this to be something harmful or for it to go this way. And I just got to be a little bit better. And that doesn't, to me, I think it's easy to assume that means weakness. That's just reality. You're not being weak. You're just like, why would you know all the answers? Why would you know how to do everything? You've never done this before in most scenarios. You're trying and it's okay to try. So, in my head, I'm like, bring your kids with you. Let them know. Let them know what's happening. Let them also know they're safe, they're protected, they're taken care of. But like, if you let someone into your mental space, that's like, to me, that's a very big act of love.
Yeah. Well, and that's the three things that you just mentioned right there that most kids are looking for all day, every day. So are we actually doing that as parents, not just as dads, but everybody in general that's raising these kids? Are we showing that to these kids? Are we showing them that they are safe, that they are protected, that they are loved? We like to do this thing, and I know for me, it was one thing that I learned from parents and from grandparents and all that was, well, I tried my best. Like that wasn't my intent.
Yeah.
We hear that all the
All the
time. Well,
time. Yep.
that's fine. I get that wasn't your intent, but how was your effort? Like, what was your execution like on the back end of that? Because if we're only looking at the front half of that, man, all we're really doing is just creating a really good excuse.
Or my thought is like, I always want to look at those people and be like, so where's the conversation go from here? Because I'm not saying you didn't try your best. What I'm saying though is your best hurt me. So where do we go from here? And that's just the reality of life is, hey man, I'm going to do my best. I'm not intentionally phoning it in any area of my life. Like I'm not. So whenever my best isn't enough, how do I react to that? How do the people I love react to that? And how do I keep this a conversation? Because the second I in the conversation, that doesn't mean the question stopped. That doesn't mean the pain just suddenly goes away. It manifests in different forms. So how do you keep the conversation going? I feel like is a good majority of relationships, not even just being a parent.
Think so. I mean, if you think about the best way to lead, I mean, as men generally, that's what our role is to do, is to lead the home, to
Mm-hmm.
provide, we could go through this whole long list
Yeah.
of things that we typically end up doing.
Yeah.
But the best way to do that isn't by telling our kids this is what we're going to do. And that's part of it, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the important part is what we do after that stuff. So if we do mess something up, if we need to apologize, if we have a failure or a mistake, or we don't hit that mark like we thought that we would, cool. What are we going to show our kids about how we get back up and keep going? How can I turn this from failure into feedback? Or
Mm-hmm.
how can I make this so it's not happening to me, but this is actually happening for me? This gives me the opportunity to learn. I can pull a lesson from this, and I can figure out a way to do it better next time. The whole concept of, Edison with the light bulb, I didn't, what was it he said? I didn't mess it up 1,000 times, or however it
I
is. I
didn't fail
forget
1,000
exactly on there.
times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't fail 1,000 times. I just took, 999 times to get it
To
right.
figure it out. Yeah. Yeah. And I think like that's one thing I'll always tell dads is like, I do think the most undiscussed burden, whatever word you want to use for it, of being a parent is you get to decide what your kid thinks is normal. And there's such a weird stress to that of like, hey, whenever someone cut you off, how did you react? And like, how did you do this? Whenever you're waiting in line in the grocery store, how are you acting? Are you pacing? Are you like, oh, what's going on with this line? Like, are you talking like that under your breath? Your kids are going to think that's how you should react whenever something isn't going the way you think it should. So how do you tweak that? Because how you act is what your kid is going to think is okay, how to act themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a weird responsibility that comes with that.
Yeah. It's this really weird thing where we like to tell ourselves that we're being intentional. We like to tell that
Yeah.
we're doing all of the right things. I'm not, I'm actually present with my kids. They know I love them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weird how that always comes up as a question, not a statement,
Yep.
And it's like, well, what are we actually doing in the home? One of the biggest things that I'll talk with guys about that honestly comes across like a smack in the face is, how often is your phone in your hand, or how often is there a football game on TV and your kid comes up, hey dad, look at this, look at this. Oh, that's cool, bud.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's end of conversation there. Like that kid, he's going to look at it and be like, yeah, this isn't as important as I thought it was. Let's put this back here and we'll deal with it in like 20, 25 years when it pops back up as trauma,
That's really the
That's the unfortunate thing is that's typically how it goes. It's the small moments that we see where we're at in our life as adults are sometimes the biggest moments in their life at, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever age. That could be the biggest part of their day. They worked an hour and a half on this drawing and it was the coolest thing in the world. And we just basically slapped it, threw it down just because we're like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Because you thought you communicated, you cared.
Yeah.
And I mean, in any relationship with your partner, with anyone, what I think I'm communicating is, hey, this is me showing I care. And whether or not they interpret that as me communicating I'm caring isn't always going to connect. So it is taking that moment to be like, okay, cool. hey, you know what? This is all like, just say the extra sentence. Say, hey, this is really cool. How long did you work on this? Or for kids, I'm always like, tell me what did you like about what you did? Tell me what you worked on this really hard. Tell me how you're proud about this. Tell me something you thought was awesome that you did this time. And that's my attempt to be like, how do I validate the effort you're putting in? And I'm hoping that validation helps. Because if it doesn't, then man, I'm really trying.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like we have deep conversations all of the time, but really we just keep it on the surface level when you step back and take a look at it. You know, it's real easy for me to say something along the lines of, "Oh, that was cool that you did that with my 8-year-old. He
Mm,
really likes Minecraft and
mm,
My Singing Monsters," right? Now,
awesome.
I don't know anything about My Singing Monsters, and I used to not know anything about Minecraft. I didn't really even want to, but
Yep.
he did.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, this is a cool way for us to actually bond. So we'll go on Minecraft and we'll build worlds together, build houses and all that kind of stuff. It's not about the game for me. It's the conversation I get to have with him while we're doing that together. It's the same thing with my 4-year-old. He's definitely not the electronics kid. He's more of the car kid, the mechanic kid that's like
Cool.
figuring stuff out and just really using his mind. So I'll be working on something in the garage and he's out there with me doing the typical here's your wrench type thing, right?
Holding the
But again,
flashlight. Yeah.
yeah, it's like the conversations that we get to have by doing those tasks. That's where that real value is because I can go deeper than just a surface level. He can do something on that game and I'm like, I have no idea how you just did that, man. Show me how,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that was really cool.
Yeah.
Instead of just going, oh yeah, that looks nice. It's like, what's that extra step that we can take?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I think for my own self, like, when am I willing to discuss how I'm actually doing? Is when I feel safe and I feel like someone is willing to be in my mental headspace. So for kids that age, yeah, Minecraft. You go play Minecraft with them, you include them in something you're doing, and then they feel like they're on a team and they're part of what you've got going on. And then, yeah, they're more receptive. If you just walk into and be like, how's your day? And then they're like, fine. They're more trying to look at it in that conversation. They're not trying to open up to you.
And the funny thing is, the questions like that we ask, I feel like we only ask that because we feel like it's necessary to ask that.
Absolutely.
Like
Yep.
it's a requirement. And that's why it's a question we already know the answer to. We could all replay that every single day.
Yep.
How was your day at school? Good. Okay, see you at dinner. Like, cool. I get to check that box for the day. Problem is, that's the box on the front of the paper called simple tasks, and we don't
Yeah.
flip it over to see, oh, wait, here's the more difficult box I have to check. Like, let's actually engage. Like, what
Yeah.
was your favorite part of the day?
Yeah.
What made you laugh? Like,
Yeah.
how did gym go? Did you have to run? How many laps did you get? Like,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of these other kind of probing questions that we can do to figure more out about our kid than just check that simple box.
Yeah. My go-to question for my girls, so I have a 9-year-old daughter, 7-year-old daughter, and 4-year-old son. And I'll ask the girls, like, so who was the best friend today? Like, who was it? Who did you play with the most? And then if they say this person's like, oh, cool. Like, did you get to play a game with them at recess? Like, how'd you use your imagination with them today? Because whenever they're in pre-K, I would like it changed who the best friend was changed every single day. So it's a good way to know like what's play to you at this age and who are you playing with and who is that person? And like, then you can be like, hey, do we need to do a play date with them? Do we need to da da da? Because like at some age, your kid just wants to play and have fun. So what's the method to do that? And also, they're children.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of us stay away from having those kind of conversations because we didn't have it shown to us growing
Correct.
up,
Yeah.
and that's part of that blueprint that we got to switch around because otherwise we do the same thing. You know, my oldest, she's 15 right now or 16. Sorry, just had birthday, so we're in the process of doing the
She's
whole
going to
driving
correct.
and
She's
teaching
somewhere
thing.
correcting you and just
Oh,
saying,
100%, like a chill just went up my spine, you know. No.
Yep.
But the relationship that we have, it's a really good relationship because of the hard conversations
Yeah.
that we had early on. You
Yeah.
know, it's that whole idea of, you know, hard things now, easy things later, or
Mhm.
easy things now, hard things later.
Yeah.
There's not really any in between.
Yeah. And I think it's this. I try to talk to my kids like they're adults or that they will have the ability to comprehend what I'm saying. And I think the balance there that is most difficult to find is I want my 9-year-old, who's my oldest, to still be a child, but also she's the oldest. So I have different responsibilities for her. I have different expectations of her. And she can understand if I'm like, hey, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. She understands it better than the 7-year-old. So how do I preserve her ability to still be a child, but also know she's smart enough to act more mature than she is? I feel like it's the constant balance with it.
It's because of our priorities
Yeah.
oftentimes. Our priorities are making sure that the house is clean, that dinner
Mhm.
is going to be ready at a certain time, that everybody's going to bed so they can wake up the next day. Like we have this whole concept in our heads that they haven't experienced yet because of the age that they're at. So they have no idea. This is why oftentimes when you say something along the line, not you in
Yeah,
particular,
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
us as dads, right?
General you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
When we're like, well, hey, it's time for bed. Well, I don't want to. Well, you have to because I said so.
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything
That
for them.
doesn't
They
matter
still
to
don't
them.
understand, right? It's like, let's explain this concept a little bit. Well, look, dude, when you stay up too late, you wake up in the morning cranky, and then you start having issues with friends at school. The day doesn't go well. Like this is why we go to bed at this time. And it's not just a you thing. This is everybody in the house. Like as soon as you hit the bed, trust me, I hit the bed too, man.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
know, I'm not up partying until 12 o'clock without you, you know?
Nope.
I think that a lot of the times when we do this stuff with kids, especially when we use statements like we or us, when it's the whole household, then it's
Yeah.
not just singling them out. And oftentimes they feel like they do get singled out, especially when there's siblings involved.
Yeah.
My two boys, they're 4 and 8, and they fight like they're 4 and 8,
Yeah.
as boys
As
do,
they
right?
should. Yeah.
And 3 quarters of the time, yeah, it's my 8-year old's fault because he's doing something he shouldn't be, but I don't want that to come across to him as he's the one that's always causing
Yes.
the problems either. So we got to do a little bit more work here than just staying on the surface level and just trying to hit that bar of good enough, where a lot of times we say, well, I'm doing better than my dad did for
Mhm.
me.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we're going to call that good enough, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean great. So
Correct.
what else can you strive for here?
Yep. And that's a really, I mean, because I know a lot of people do that, and I do that sometimes too. It's like, well, I'm not as bad as, I'm not as bad as, da, 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 da. And I'm like, that doesn't equal good.
Hmm.
That just means you haven't gone as low as you know you can go. And that's, I have higher expectations for myself than saying I wasn't as big of a piece of crap as I could have been today is not as motivating of a sentence to say to yourself as you may think.
Yeah, it's a really tricky thing, I think, for us as guys to deal with, because one of the biggest things we don't want to be is a failure.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that's grained into us for
Hmm. Yeah.
right? We don't want to be a failure. So instead of going for that high task, that high goal, really striving for
Hmm.
something, we play in that safe zone where it's like, well, I might not be winning, but I'm not failing. So we're going to chalk this one up as a win. It's like, let's see if it's still a win in 10, 15, 20 years.
Yep. Yep. And like also parenting is one of the most ridiculous things ever because like you have no idea what, like, for lack of a better put it, you have no idea what your return on investment is. Like, you know,
No.
if I put money into 401k, I can track it, I can know how I'm doing, I can evaluate it, blah blah blah. With my kids, like I'm a stay-at-home parent, my kids are at school, but you know, like I lead the household, you know, however you want to put it. And like my hope is that by doing this, they feel safe, they feel seen, they feel calm, they know they're taken care of. I don't, when do I find that out? When do I find out if any of my efforts were accurate? And it's like maybe in their 20s, maybe in their 30s. Cool.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. The crazy thing with that return on investment is you know that you did it right if they no longer need you.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the weirdest
yeah.
part.
If you eliminate yourself from the equation and they've gotten that much independence, is whenever you did a good job. And it's like, but I have a lot of identity wrapped up in this.
No kidding. It's a very strange job being a parent. And, every single day we're sitting here questioning whether we're doing it right or not. But I think that's what really makes us good parents is because we ask those questions. Did
Yeah.
I do this right?
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, well, I'm good enough. A lot of those questions I'll tell guys all the time, like asking that question tells me you're right where it is that you need to
Correct.
be.
Yeah.
Not knowing the answer is right where you need to be. You know, everything that you've been taught got you to where you are. That's all the stuff that you know right now. So it makes sense that if you're getting better, you don't know the answer yet. Only key word there is yet.
Yeah. Yep. And like curiosity, man. Curiosity is one of the easiest things to kill within yourself because curiosity means you have to challenge yourself constantly and you have to constantly say, I don't know, let's figure it out. And how many days do you get to the end of the day and you're like, I don't want to figure out more stuff. I'm ready to zone out. I'm ready to coast as much as I can. And it just, you have to constantly wonder, but what if, but not in the anxiety filled way that destroys you. And that's not fun either.
Yeah. Yeah. And that part, it's weird how it all starts to work and how you start seeing it take place. Is we'll get to that point where it's the end of the day and we're just exhausted. We want to zone out.
Yeah.
So we do.
Yeah.
And then we feel bad for doing it. Like we almost shame ourselves because
Mhm.
we took some time to ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like there's a million other things that need done. And
Yeah.
here I am watching TV
Yeah.
late at night.
Yeah.
Right. So then we go into this whole scenario of I'm bad for what it is I'm doing. We don't ever want to strive anymore because we're already telling ourselves that we're bad. But that's not even close to the
No.
case. Again, it's just what it was we were taught.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it like your phone battery, right? It's not going to do you much good if it's only at 20%. You're not hardly going to be able to use that throughout the day. You won't be able to take photos or videos of your kids playing. You'll
Yep.
probably miss a few important phone calls
Yeah.
because it's at 20%.
Yeah.
Even our phone has to recharge at
Yeah.
the end of the day. So it's at 100. We got to do the same thing. Otherwise, we can't divvy up that 100% we have to everybody else in the house.
Yeah. Or also, like, if you use your phone all day and you get to it's 9 p.m. and it's at 20%, you don't look at your phone and go, "How dare you be at 20%?" You're like, "No, I used you all day." Like, of
Yeah.
course you of course you need a break.
Good job, little buddy. You did
Yeah.
good
Yeah,
today,
like, "Hey, you did good. This puts you up." But, like, I do yeah, because like, I mean, if a kid wakes up at 6 a.m., all the kids aren't asleep in the house until, like, 9:30 or so, then you're like, "Well, do I deserve to watch a TV show?" And it's like, "Didn't you just put in a 15-hour day?"
Mhm.
Like, and also you don't really like your kids sleeping isn't a break, like, because they can wake up. There's still stuff to attend to. So, like, yeah, the how easy it is to downplay how much you care and downplay how much you hold every single day is something that I feel like you just constantly battle.
Yeah, the way that I'll tell different guys about this is if we picture not just parenthood, but just being a guy in general as like we're climbing a mountain, like we're trying to reach the peak of that mountain. That's the creme de la creme, the
Yeah.
best that we can possibly be. We're on this journey climbing this thing, right? Well, we can't do it in one day.
No.
We can't. I mean, it's going to take decades for us to get there at the very least. I don't know about you guys, but I can't go on that kind of a hike without sleeping at some point, right? Like I get tired. When we think of it this way, this camp where we pitched our tent at the end of the night and we sleep and everything, that's when it's okay that, hey, this is me time. I got to recharge because if I don't, I can't go on and climb the next day. I can't reach that summit. I have to recharge. I carry that stuff with me so I can put camp up wherever it is that
Mhm.
I need to. And I have to do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to be any good.
Yeah. It's really fascinating to dive in with yourself and other people. Like, in what areas of life do you need to give yourself a little bit more grace?
Mhm.
And that's a fascinating journey that usually you need a therapist to help you out with it.
Yeah, because most of us have been told that giving ourselves grace is just an excuse for, well, it's okay. The
Yeah.
idea of the participation trophy,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what everybody always said. Like, well, that's essentially giving grace. You didn't really do anything, but we don't want you to be sad.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I see what you're trying to do here, but it's like that's the complete other end of the pendulum that
Yeah.
we're swinging on. It's like, why don't we look at the effort they put in? Like I love it whenever I see these kids' teams, whether it's preschool teams or, the Mighty Mites football or
Mhm.
whatever, they've got all of these trophies and awards, and it's for like most improved player
Yeah.
or, funniest player, the guy that can always make everybody on the team laugh
Yep.
or whatever. Like they come up with ways to legitimately say, I see the effort that you put in. You may not have got any time on the field,
Yeah.
but you are a part of this team and we see how much effort you put in to be here. And that's what I strive to do with my kids more than anything else is praise the effort that they put in,
Yeah.
not the result.
Yeah, of course. One of my daughters comes home from school and they had like a math test and they get like a 9 out of 10. My first reaction is to be like, why didn't you get 10 out of 10? It's like, hey, you missed a problem. Let's look at the problem. Let's discuss it. Tell me your thought process. Tell me what you were going through to do this. Because to tell them they're only good if they got 10 out of 10, that's not good. That's not going to
Hmm.
lead to anything healthy. So I care more about mental space and the effort that my kids put in. Hey, how did you process this problem? When you read this word problem, how did you interpret it? And let's see how you process the world as opposed to just rewarding the end result or placating the end result, which is what also whenever you're a kid, if you cared, if you tried on that team. For someone to give you a trophy and you're like, I sat on the bench all day. Like I don't deserve a trophy. Like that you don't deserve that trophy, which then pendulum swings them the other way of like, what the hell do I do with this then?
Hmm. And it's crazy because when we talk about all of this kind of stuff, it almost starts to sound like, man, no matter what it seems like I try to do, there's something negative that's going to come in on it. I'm either going to be too hard or I'm going to be too soft. I'm going to be too generous or not generous enough. And it really seems like everything that we think about parenting is on this binary scale and nothing is right. That man, that's the part I've got to disagree with on that. There is a middle spot on there, and it really comes down to accountability and awareness. Are you paying attention to what it is that not only that you're doing, but what is it your kids are doing? And can you take accountability, like you said earlier, for when I don't necessarily get things 100% right? And how can you help hold them accountable for the stuff they say they're going to do as well? That's kind of where that middle ground is, and it's really gray. It's really kind of sketchy and foggy because you can't ever really tell for sure. But as far as I've found, as long as you know you're not on one end or the other, you're somewhere in the middle, you're probably doing
You're probably
okay.
doing okay. Because whenever you think of your own issues with life and stuff, why do I have an issue with this? Because I thought of it in black and white terms usually. I thought I was guaranteed this result. Well, like you go to a doctor and you have an issue. Doctor's like, hey, here's my best guess. Like, here's what I think is happening. Now I'll go try this medicine and we'll see what happens. And like in my head, I'm like, this has to be guaranteed. This has to work. And it's like every human body is different. Every interaction is different. Every single day you wake up different. How can you just wake up and be like, hey, I need to be more mentally present and mentally available to whatever issues arise today? How do I get there? Yeah.
It's a trick, man, especially with, with what you're just saying with the doctors and every human being different. Anybody that's got more than one kid knows every single one of these
God.
kids is completely different.
Yep.
Like what I did for the first one isn't going to be the same for the second or
Nope.
for the third or anything like
Nope.
that. I'm not even the same dad for each one of
Right.
those
Yes.
kids.
Yeah.
That dad doesn't work for all of them.
But you want it to? Man, if the comfort techniques that worked for my first daughter worked for my second daughter and then worked for my son, I would have phoned it in so hard.
100%. I'd have more than 3 kids if it
Yeah,
worked
that's right.
that easy,
Yep. Nope. All the comfort techniques. The first one liked, the second one hated. And then the third one, I don't even remember what comfort techniques.
But it's good though, because I think whether we want to admit it or not, we want things to be that way. We want each one of our kids to have this unique personality. And I'll even tell all 3 of mine, I hope that you don't turn out like me.
Yeah.
That's the last thing that I want. That's
Yeah.
going to put up more red flags if I see you doing the same stuff that I
I'm like,
did.
oh God,
That's
I'm
where we
so
got
sorry.
problems.
You don't need to be this person. Just trust me.
Yeah. It's like, no, I want you to be better than I did. I want you to have bigger goals, dreams, and ambitions than I did. I want you to be able to come to me whenever you have questions about this stuff, and also hold me accountable if I'm not holding that space for you too, because I don't know a lot of this stuff. I mean, I really don't. And it took a long time to get comfortable with being in that position. But it almost comes back to this idea of the lone wolf mentality that a lot of us have. I have to figure it out myself because I can't ask for help. Again, you asking for help shows weakness is what a lot of us think. But it's funny because the lone wolf mentality only works in Hollywood movies. And only half of the time, even then, doesn't work. Like if you look out in nature, a lone wolf by itself, he ain't going to survive
That's
long
not good.
whatsoever.
No.
Like we got to be able to have these core group of guys that we can bring this stuff with, that we can talk this stuff out with, get different perspectives. It's really necessary.
Yeah.
To be able to have that camaraderie.
Yeah. So I'm going to use that as the opportunity to switch to talk about like Mechanics Garage, the company you do and all that, because it's pretty focused on accountability for men, community, and all that realm. Is that correct?
Absolutely
Cool.
is.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Talk about it. Yeah. My bad.
With what we found out on this, it's guys that are willing to really put in the effort to be the best dad that they can. The main program that we have it called Be the Dad You Wish You Had. Well, the mirror side of that is the dad your kids deserve too. Because I really do feel like every one of our kids, they deserve for us to be at our best and putting in as much effort as we can on this. And that doesn't mean perfection, but it does mean presence. It does mean being around, not just being that shell of a dad, right? And the 3 main ways that we do that is by teaching guys how to be accountable with themselves and receive that accountability from others without immediately going into defensiveness and trying to, a lot of times we'll even try to get defensive and attack at the same time just so nobody starts asking those questions. But those questions are needed so we can get better. And we also dive into having the brotherhood aspect where we have multiple different dads and we're all talking about this stuff every day. Even the funny little things that our kids do every single day, those little, hilarious moments, to the times that we feel like we're completely failing as a dad to begin with.
Yeah.
This stuff we can't bring up really, we can't even bring it up with our spouses a lot of the times too, because while my wife is a great mom, she has no idea what it means to be a dad. And if I start bringing some of this stuff up, she's not going to understand where I'm coming from. And that's fine. It's supposed to be that way, but it does mean I need somebody else I can have these conversations with.
Yeah.
I can't just be doing it myself.
No, and similar to you won't know what it's like to be a mother to your children because you're like it reverses itself also, which to me doesn't mean the opportunity to lean into loneliness. It's the opportunity to look up and be like, okay, cool. Why would I expect my wife to know what it's like to be a father? She's the
Mhm.
mother. Why would I expect myself to understand? Like there are gaps of understanding and empathy because you're doing the best you can. So yeah, then go find guys who you can discuss with. You also then encourage your wife to go find other moms that she can talk about it with because you're not alone, but it sure as hell feels like you are.
100%. And that's the third part that we really strike on really heavy is the idea of relationship and legacy. What is it we're leaving behind for our kids? Because what we say that hits maybe 10% of the time, but what we do that hits the other 90% of the time. And they see the stuff that we do even when we don't think that they're watching,
Yeah.
and so that includes how are we treating their mom? How are we treating ourselves? That was one that was real big for my daughter because my daughter is from a prior relationship.
Okay.
So her seeing how I treated her mom, even though we weren't together in a relationship, completely changed how she started having relationships with other people. It's again, it's just necessary to have this stuff because we can only do so much by ourselves. It's almost like we get tunnel vision based off of all the past experiences that we've had, good or bad. We get this tunnel vision, and it takes other people in similar situations to kind of pull those blinders off and really help us be the best that we can.
Yeah. Because I mean, self awareness is one of the most important things I feel like you can have or be in tune with, but that you can only notice so much about yourself. You can only like be outside your own self and inside yourself. Like you can only be to get out of your own headspace to objectively look at what you're doing. Good luck.
Mhm.
That's why you have friends. That's why we have therapists. That's why we have community.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing because a lot of the times we know the question in our head, but we won't actually we'll pretend that question doesn't exist
Yeah.
because that's a hard question and we don't want to answer it, right? Well, sometimes we need our buddies that aren't going to pull
Yeah.
punches to ask those questions and help hold us
Yeah.
accountable, because otherwise we're just going to pretend like everything's okay. And then we start playing around with that anxiety thing you were talking about earlier, right? All those what if questions that just float around up there that we never actually answer. Yeah, that's a real quick way to drive yourself crazy.
It is. It is. And I don't know if you feel this way, but like I know if I open up a door, then I feel the need to walk through it. So like if there's a lingering issue or something like that, you will kind of keep it in your subconscious, like, all right, subconscious, work through figure out the answer figure for me, figure it out. Because once you open up the door to that question, then you got to find the answers, what I always feel like. So I feel like sometimes I'm like, I'm just gonna keep this door closed for a little bit. Why did I react so angry in that moment? I'm not ready to open that door yet. I need to, but I'm gonna keep that closed. And then hopefully a friend comes along and is like, it's time to open that door, man. Let's
Yeah.
see what's hiding back there.
Yeah. Or even more importantly, was I actually angry in this moment or was it something else that I didn't know how to express? Like
Correct.
that was the
Yes.
biggest one that
Yeah.
I had to deal with,
Yep.
right? Like I don't even know what sadness is supposed to feel like. Or, I mean, it took me a long time. And I think this is one of the biggest things that I hold myself accountable for is I didn't actually know what love felt like until
Yeah.
I was like 35 years old.
Yeah.
And this was after I had all three of my kids. My youngest at this time was like 2.5 or 3 years old. I'd been gone for 3, 4 days and came back in the door. And as soon as my youngest hugged me because I'd been gone, that's when all of a sudden, like, I mean, flood work started and
Oh,
everything, which
yeah.
was crazy to begin with
Yeah.
because, we're not supposed to
But
cry.
no,
We're men,
I've
right?
never, I've actually still have yet to cry. It's very fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know, right? So, I mean, it's just all the dust in the air or
It's
something,
weird.
I
It's weird.
guess,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that all took place, and that's when I knew, just for me, I'm like, this is really the first time I've
Yeah.
actually known what love feels like.
That's awesome.
And not only did that change my relationship with my kids,
Mm-hmm.
it also changed my relationship with my wife, and it even created a brand new purpose for me moving forward,
Hell
so
yeah.
I could help dads feel the same
Hell yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and make sure that this stuff doesn't get passed on to other kids too. I like to think like, man, if we got an average of like 2.5 kids in each house in America or so, which I don't know where the half comes from. Maybe there's, I
Who
don't know.
knows? Math is
That's a
math.
whole other conversation,
That's
right?
right.
But the way I've always viewed it is if I can help one dad, that's two
Yeah,
kids
man.
don't have to go through the same curses that I did growing up because now their dad knows how to do better.
Yeah.
And hopefully so will their kids
Yeah.
and their grandkids and
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
That also means though that you felt that whenever you feel acceptance and you feel love, I do think it's a natural reaction to assume you need to reject it because it scares you. Because whenever you actually do feel accepted, you have to believe you're worth accepting at the same time. So in that moment, I am very happy that you leaned into it. You said, "Oh my God, am I worth loving? Is this what love looks like? Is it okay for me to accept the love, the pure love of my 2-year-old? It is. And it's beautiful. But I do think some of us can be so guarded and have so many walls up that when that love shows up, the first reaction is to be like, this is going to hurt me. If I accept
Yeah.
this, this is going to destroy me. And it's you, a lot of it, you want to protect yourself. So it's easy to reject the love that's in front of you.
Yeah, we get on our way so
Yeah,
much
man.
with all of this stuff. It's insane. And that's kind of where the concept behind calling it mechanics garage came into place, because that was one of my favorite things to do working on cars was rebuild an engine. And it went through this process where you had to like diagnose and tear down the engine to figure out what went wrong
Yeah.
so you could rebuild it better so it wouldn't happen again. And then you got to go drive it because it was really fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like
Cool.
that's the
Yeah.
whole thing. But now we can take that same thing and we can apply it to us as dads in about any situation, whatever took place. All right, I got a diagnosis so we can go ahead and rebuild it better. So then we can be an even better version of
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. And how awesome is that? How awesome is that? That like in it, I don't know, man, self-acceptance and grace is so difficult at times because you don't blame, like, I find this constant battle with you don't want to, you want to be accountable for who you are without shaming yourself for who you are. And that is a very delicate balance to be like, hey, this is who you naturally are. This is the patterns you're repeating. You're not a piece of crap. But now that you've seen it, like make some changes, adapt to it. You were given the cards you were given, make some changes, figure it out.
It just really comes down to teaching guys it's okay to feel guilty. And that doesn't mean you have to be shamed.
Yes. Yeah.
Because shame is the person is bad. Guilt is I did something incorrectly or I didn't do something good enough. Guilt is necessary.
It is. Yes.
We have to feel guilt.
A lot of
Otherwise,
correction.
we don't ever do anything better. But shame, we can kick that thing to the curb, man.
Correct. Yeah, because it is that difference of like, why do you feel guilty about this? Oh, I thought I could have been better. Cool. But like you have the ability to, right? Where shame immediately goes and be like, you should have been better and you never will be. That's what shame tells me. And it's like, well, who's that helping? That's not making, you're not going to make any positive changes. Now you're going to recede more, you're going to retract more, and you're going to repeat the action because you don't think you have it in you to be better. That's what shame tells me.
Shame will lead you into a depressive style where chances are you're probably going to be dealing heavily with alcohol and all kinds of other stuff out there.
A lot of coping.
Just to cope and get away from it, right? And the unfortunate thing is a lot of the times 3, 4, 5 years go by and one day we're like, I'm just like my dad was. Yeah. I don't like this.
Yep. Yep. But then you have to like counteract the shame to acknowledge like you can change. And like just because this is where you ended up, pay some, to make it right with some people or whatever you got to do. But like it is within you to get better.
Yeah. Everything that took place up to this point is what was needed to hit that proverbial rock bottom, right? Like I can't go any lower than this. And that moment's going to be different for everybody.
Yep.
The biggest thing is, what are you going to do after you hit that moment? You're going to set up camp down there and just stay and wallow in pity and shame and all that, right? Or are we going to start climbing out of there? Because there's ways to get out of there for sure.
There are.
You just got to really believe that you're even worth it.
Yeah. And I'll tell some guys, like, don't dig a basement. You're already at the rock bottom. Like, don't keep digging. Let this be your rock bottom. Because trust me, if you want me to be worst case scenario person, I can tell you how things can get worse. Let this be your worst moment. Stop digging. Put the shovel down.
Yeah.
So, all right, before we start wrapping up and everything, how I end every episode is I ask every guest a series of 5 questions. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Anything else?
And there's a lot of topics that we could go over for sure. But I think as far as today's concerned,
Cool.
I think we hit the mark pretty well.
Sweet. Awesome. And I do want to say thanks for just I love one of my favorite things about doing this podcast is it is an intentional moment to just be serious about how you feel about fatherhood and to give a moment to express how much you care. So genuinely, thanks for immediately just jumping in and being like, dude, let's talk about this. Talk about patterns, talk about how you want to be better and how I also have the belief in me of hey, if you're a dad, and you don't like who you are, you can change, you can be better. And you don't have to repeat this. How do I get you to believe in yourself and know that you're worth loving and you are loved? And then that usually makes you start making the changes in your day-to-day life.
Absolutely does, man. And thanks for having me on here for this because I think that what we really need is a lot more conversations like this to begin with. You know, letting guys know it's okay to even talk about this stuff
Yes.
instead of putting it in a box that we hope nobody finds. Like,
Yeah.
eventually it's going to get found.
It is. And like that's the hope is like I'm not here to be like, here's the answer to all your problems. It's like, hey, do you feel this? Like, is this something you feel every single day? Cool. How do you feel about it? Let's talk about it. And I'll hopefully
Exactly.
interject how I feel about it too, and we'll go from there. So anyway, Chris, how we end every episode is I ask every guest a series of 5 questions. You have time to think about them. They're not rapid fire. So first question is, do you have any backup names for your kids? Like, is there any names you almost named your children?
So we almost named my oldest son after myself.
Okay.
We are going to call him my middle name, which is Colby.
Yeah.
And we played with it for a little bit. And funnily enough, the way we decided this isn't the right name is because I did the whole trick where you call the full name like you're upset at him or something, you know, because you got to have some flow.
Have it. You got to have it. Yep.
And it just wasn't flowing right. And so like, we got to come up with something else. So we ended up landing on Jackson.
Okay.
And then ironically enough, we find out we're having our 4-year-old, or, our 4-year-old is now and such. And we're trying to come up with a name for him. I ended up choosing Barrett as his name. About a year and a half after he was born, my wife put 2 pieces together, the Barrett Jackson car auction.
What's the Barrett Jackson car auction? I don't even know what that is.
It is a huge car auction that they put on multiple times a year. And I mean, you see like all kinds of classic cars, new cars. And I mean, these things are going for high dollar stuff.
Amazing.
It used to be on the background all the time while I'm working on stuff. And it's like, yeah, that fits, I guess.
That's amazing. Also, I love that your metric was like, all right, whenever I need this kid to listen and listen now, how do I feel as I say this name in that tone of voice? It's fantastic.
I mean, you can't really yell through the house Bartholomew without laughing a little bit. I mean,
we used to have a dog and her name was Cinnamon, and we did not do that test with her. So whenever she would run out of the house, run into the road, we'd be like, Cinnamon. And I'm like, you just screamed the spice.
Yeah.
Cool, man. That's great. Okay, next question. Do you have a favorite TV or movie dad?
If I had to pick one, it would probably be between 2 different ones.
Yeah.
I really liked Mike Baxter, the character Tim Allen played in Last Man Standing.
Okay, yeah.
It seemed like that was more right along the lines with kind of my style, I guess. Like, yeah, there's going to be some sarcasm in there. We're going to joke and jab a little bit, but ultimately, I just want what's best for you. And we're going to be using a lot of real life examples with this stuff. And, at some point in time, the analogy I guess we'll use is sometimes I got to let you burn your hand on the stove to figure out that it's hot.
Yeah.
That kind of envelops a lot of my parenting style in that. But I also like Uncle Iroh from Avatar because, I mean, it's Uncle Iroh. He's the coolest thing in the world, right? He's got all of these different, like, just very wise moments that he shares with everybody. I'm like, I kind of want to be a dad like that too.
Yeah.
Not too much because too much is kind of overbearing. Yep. So let's just mix the 2 together.
Yeah. I think to be constant wisdom, you got to be like in your 60s, like where there's like some age in which like people are like, oh, now I'll listen to him. But like,
I got to get a little more gray in the beard before I can get there.
But if you're in like your 30s or 40s and you're like, this is how life will work, they're like, shut up, you don't know anything. And you're like, yeah, I don't. You weren't supposed to know that yet. Next question. What's your go-to replacement curse word? Like you stub your toe in the house, you drop a wrench on your foot, something like that, and you're about to scream a word. Do you scream the curse word or do you replace it with something else?
Well, if the kids aren't around, there's a lot of cool language that gets made up out in the shop. I can tell you that.
Fantastic.
But when they are around, it's almost like a switch goes off and it's a whole different personality, right? So there's not very many times that I have to come up with a different word per se. But I do make a lot of really funny dad noises when something like that comes. So he's like, there's a lot of grunting and a lot of sighing and such. Like, yeah, exactly. It's never really a word, more like a combination of like 5 words and a couple of sounds that come out.
That's
so
honest.
It's just kind of one of those things. It doesn't matter what word it is. You can tell exactly based off of the concept. Like if I chose to say chocolate instead of the F word, right? Like my kid goes to school going, what's the chocolate? Like they're going to figure it out eventually. So we're just changing the word at that point in time. So it's like, nah, let's just work on the other aspect of it instead of trying to just cover it up and sweep it under the rug. So even with my kids now, my 15-year-old and my 8-year-old at this point now, if it's just me around, I don't have too much of a problem with it. because they understand that it's only with me around.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
they're going to figure it out anyway at some point. So it's kind of one of those things of how do you really control the moment? Because you can't just tell them not to do it, because then they're just going to want to do it even more. You know?
Yeah. It's, man, how much of parenting is explaining consequences? Okay, you said that word. You said in front of a teacher. Now I get called. Now this all happens. Now I get involved in a way in which I'm already bristled on like, what are you doing? Well, let's not do that. Like, understand the word, understand the meaning, understand the purpose of it, and then know when to use that purpose. Please.
It just comes back to conversations as far as I'm concerned, because if the whole conversation that we have is don't use that word, they're going to be like, why? Because it's a bad word.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Like, so is the word bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bad word too.
It's literally in the word.
Yeah. It's like, so let's actually have a bit of a conversation about this and explain why or when or anything like that before you just go and all over the place because I told you not to. Well, let's go a little bit deeper here.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. What's fascinating to me is like, for the example of curse words specifically, like I still remember being a kid and being told, hey, don't say this word. And then it's immediately saying it constantly. And so I'm like, how do you, like, if that existed in you whenever you were a child, why would that not exist in your own children? Why would you not think that that ego, that desire to see what happens next isn't in them as well?
Exactly. And that's the coolest thing when we think about it, though. If I learned all of this stuff growing up as a kid, think about how much power I have to also teach my kids how they can be too. If I just change the way that things are being taught like that, you know, it's really powerful when we start thinking about how much influence we have on these little tiny creatures that look partially like us and act more like us than we really want them to sometimes.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just one of those things. We got to recognize what it is that we have in front of us.
And how do you frame it? Framing, setting expectations, so much of it. Anyway, sorry. Next question. What's one of your favorite like activities or toys that you play with your kids?
So me and my boys, we love wrestling around.
Cool.
As most boys typically do, right? So we've got a fairly decent sized open floor plan for our living room. And there's a lot of bouncing back and forth and throwing them onto the couch and bed and such like that, which is always fun as a dad when you get to throw your kids on something, you know, it just feels awesome.
Yeah.
So they both love really doing that. And we've got a couple of acres out in front of our house. It's just open field. And they also like going and doing donuts in the front yard, which I can never say no to because I have as much fun doing that as they do.
That's all. I can't, donuts make me like spinning in a circle makes me dizzy. So I like anytime my kids are like, push me, like spin me. And I'm like, I'll be dizzy for the next like 2 hours and let's figure out a different way to play. I want to engage, but I'd rather not almost throw up. That'd be great.
Yeah. We actually went out this past right around Christmas time or so. We went and built a snowman out there.
Okay.
And then I got the car out and we went and did donuts around the snowman. It was awesome.
That's fun. And that's like, I don't know, man. A lot of this podcast is discussing the ridiculous everyday moments that you have because I think I'm going to assume your kids will remember whenever they're older and start having kids like, hey, do you remember that one time we built the snowman and dad made us drive donuts around the snowman? And he'll be like, yeah. And you'll be like, yeah, it was fun. Like, that was a good time. So, okay. Last question is there like a moment of your kid's life you're most excited to be a part of or to see them experience? Like, as you think of your kids growing older, is there any moment where you're like, oh man, I really hope you get to experience this and this is part of your life?
I think for that moment, it might sound a little esoteric on this end, but I would hope that they recognize some point in life where that they don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
We all know as teenagers that like we think we have everything figured out, right?
Yeah.
And I know that I got slapped in the face for thinking that. I know a bunch of buddies of mine that are like, everybody gets slapped in the face thinking they know everything about life when they're like 16, 17 years old, right? I hope that they experience that moment and still feel comfortable coming to me with questions about it.
Yeah.
That's what my biggest hope is for them, is that they recognize that this is how it's supposed to be. And everything that comes after this is your choice, not mine.
Yeah. Yep. And that even whenever you do something dumb, like, I'm still here for you. I still got you. Let's talk about it. Like, how do I keep myself in a posture in which my kids want to keep having a conversation? So how do I keep an ongoing conversation with the people that I love? And that'd be a beautiful thing.
And it's going to be a cool moment when they start getting old enough that I get to have these conversations with them about what I was going through when they were like 2 or 3 years old, you know, like that's going to be really fun. It's like, man, let me tell you about when you were 3 years old and the things you used to do. Okay. No.
Yeah. And yeah, or it'd be like, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember this? And like, I remember that I was through. And I'm like, well, just so you know, this is what I put up with.
I got receipts right
got
here.
Receipts right here.
Show you.
Remember all those videos I took you hated? Here you go.
Yeah.
And then last thing, Chris, is just moment for self-promotion. So if we want to like follow you on Instagram, TikTok, how do we find out more about you and follow you?
So I've got a website called enterthegarage.com. You can go there and I've got all of my social links there and everything that you can click on too, but you should be able to find everything on socials as Mechanics Garage 417.
Cool. Sweet. And yeah, man, that's pretty much all I got. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks for wanting to come on the podcast. Thanks for wanting to be a part of this. And thanks for just like hanging out and talking about stuff that we both care deeply about.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Devin. I always have a blast doing these things, especially when we can go into conversations like this too. You know, like I was saying a little bit ago, you know, I think that it's definitely needed just to show other guys like, yeah, we can have these conversations instead of just pretending like we don't need to.
Correct. Yeah. Or I think one thing I always want to tell Todd is like, hey, you caring about this stuff matters. Like you caring about this stuff, like if your headspace is already here, like diving into that's really important. So how do I normalize this for you and let you know this is good to do? And if someone listens to this conversation, it's like, hey, I actually care about this stuff a lot. Like, yeah, good. Know that that's good. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to go pick my son up from pre-K and I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Chris.
Hey, sounds good. See you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Imperfect Dads Podcast, and make sure to subscribe and rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to us, such as Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. The music is provided by The Wild Feathers, and all episodes are produced by me. Make sure to tune in Mondays for new episodes.